Ah, okay, so important. Thank you. So Prabhupada here describes how this chapter connects with or relates with the previous chapters. In the fourth chapter, 39th verse, it is said that a person faithful to a particular type of worship gradually becomes elevated to the stage of knowledge and attains the highest perfectional stage of peace and prosperity. In the 16th chapter, it is concluded that one who does not follow the principles laid down in the scriptures is called an asura, demon, and one who follows the scriptural injunctions faithfully is called a deva, or demigod. Now, if one with faith follows some rules which are not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions, what is his position? So, chapter 16 was divine and demoniac natures, and pretty much a basic way of the way Krishna is differentiating between divine and demoniac natures. Overall, we saw so many specific symptoms that he gives, but what drives those symptoms is the desire in the divine to live their life by faith in the scriptures, in the guidelines or recommendations given by Krishna. This is how we should lead our life. And the demoniac nature, they just want to do whatever they want to do. Just like this is not something really fantastic. It's just like a law-abiding citizen is generally someone who lives, a good citizen is generally someone who lives by the laws of the country, right? Of course, you can live by the laws of a country and still be a very mean person. But generally, the laws, theoretically at least, the laws are meant to support good behavior, good actions, good character, and to prohibit bad behavior, right? So it's illegal to kill someone because that's a law of the land. And if we engage in stealing or killing, then we go into jail and we're classified as a not good person. So a person who lives their life by the laws of the land is generally, if the laws are good, is considered a pious person, a gentleman. But a person who just does whatever they want and they break the laws that the society or the community have put forward for the protection of the citizens, they are considered to be demoniac, right? So it's heavy words that Krishna is using, but the idea is the same. That if we live our life by the scriptures, by Krishna's injunctions, thou shalt not kill, right? Then we are of the divine nature. But if we just do whatever we want out of our own selfish egoism and desire, then that's called demoniac nature. And now Krishna in this chapter describes faith also in relation to following the scriptures. He also describes faith in relation to in relation to the previous chapter's discussion. This doubt of Arjuna's is to be cleared by Krishna. Are those who create some sort of God by selecting a human being and placing their faith in him, worshipping in goodness, passion, or ignorance? Do such persons attain the perfectional stage of life? Is it possible for them to be situated in real knowledge and elevate themselves to the highest perfectional stage? Do those who do not follow the rules and regulations of the scriptures, but who have faith in something and worship gods and demigods and men, attain success in their effort? Arjuna is putting these questions to Krishna. So sometimes people just worship something. What is their end? Does Krishna see that as goodness, passion, or ignorance when they worship a human being? So, as I mentioned, this is how Krishna describes the divine nature and the demoniac nature. Shastra means scripture, And in chapter 17, he says, describes one who with faith follows something other than Shastra. So now Arjuna's question is, well, what if someone is faithful, but their faith is not based on Shastra? They're not following the scriptures, but are following their own mind. So a person who's following the scriptures is clearly in the divine nature. A person who's not faithful to anything, who's just pursuing their ego, they're of the demoniac nature. But what about the people in the middle, right? Because it's a natural progression, because as soon as you read chapter 16, we get this question. Well, but what about the people in the middle? There's so many people in the middle, and Krishna's talking about the extremes. And that's Arjuna's question here. That these people, they're faithful, they're sincere, but they just made something up and they're following it. Or they got misled. You see so many people like that. They follow some guru, and that guru did one time, they did some magic. And then they're just following that guru because of their magic. But they're faithful people, they're sincere people, they're innocent, but their faith became established in something that is not sublime. Someone kind of took advantage of their innocence. So what about them? Arjuna is saying. They're following, but not following perfectly. So the summary of this chapter is, there are three types of faith corresponding to and evolving from the three modes of material nature. Acts performed by those whose faith is in passion and ignorance yield only impermanent material results, whereas acts performed in goodness, in accord with scriptural injunctions, purify the heart and lead to pure faith in Lord Krishna and devotion to him. So Krishna tells, while they make progress, but it's not the ultimate sublime goal. And that's why we must follow, we must have, the Prabhupada says, the basis of sentiment should be philosophy. We must follow based upon philosophy also. And sentimental attachment or sentimental progress is better than no faith, or it's better than, demoniac life, but it's not in the correct consciousness. If someone is very serious about knowing Krishna and establishing the relationship with God, then they will first seek and find the right path, right? They'll study the scriptures and lead their life accordingly, because they're not looking for some just magic or something material, but they're actually looking for the highest thing, which is love for Krishna. So Krishna is describing this. In the previous chapter, Krishna describes two extremes, the divine and the demoniac. It is clear, however, that each of us have many faces and are not necessarily one or the other. Life is never black or white, but usually different shades of gray. The faces that we present on a daily basis reveal something about our faith, the things we trust, pursue, and place value upon. As they say, what makes him tick? Chapter 17 describes how a person's affiliation to a particular mode will determine the type of faith they have. So Prabhupada said often that the face is the index of the mind. And people choose a certain, hairstyle, a certain, facial, you could say, makeup often, based upon what they're inspired by. Like in India, a lot of the actors and actresses are keeping beards now. So the young people who emulate them, almost all the youth in India are having, making beards. I noticed that last time I went, just an observation. So it's what we put our faith in. And so by looking at a person's face, we can understand sometimes the mode of nature that they are in. Of course, we cannot just judge based upon externals, but a sage especially can notice the consciousness of a person by looking at their face, which often reveals so much. But of course, this is an example. The point here is not the face. The point here is that we must see that there's many combinations of these modes of nature that manifest in each individual person, in different persons. So I won't read all this, and please don't read all this. This is too much text a little, but this is the basic breakdown of this chapter. The first 13 verses speak about faith in the modes of nature. 14 to 19 speak about austerities in the modes of nature. So though we are austere, someone can be austere in the mode of ignorance. So the austerity is there, but it's not a good austerity. Charity in the three modes of nature, and then Krishna is the enjoyer of everything. So everything should be offered to Krishna. Our austerities, charity, penance, faith should be fixed on Krishna. That's verses 23 to 28. Okay, so we'll start with texts 1 through 6, types of faith. Arjuna asks, and of course, all of you must read the chapter after this. Rather than going back and forth, just pulling from the Gita and putting it here. We can discuss it. Arjuna asks, you mentioned that those who disregard the Vedas and do not worship God become demoniac. What about those who do some kind of worship, but also disregard the Vedas? One second, I'll just be back. In chapter 16, the divine and demoniac were distinguished by whether or not they follow scripture. Here Arjuna asks about those who apparently don't fit into either category. Either they have studied the scriptures but instead worship according to some worldly calculation, or do not take the trouble to understand the scriptures and worship according to local or family tradition. Arjuna wants to know whether such persons are in goodness, passion, or ignorance. Furthermore, he wants to know the revealed scriptures. He wants to know the relationship between faith and following the revealed scriptures. Is faith alone enough? So, same thing, but put into focus. And this is a big problem in every society, just following something because of local or family tradition. The majority of people in this country follow this, so everyone goes along, follows that particular religion, that particular, faith system, without thinking, without reflecting on what is the relationship between our faith and following the scriptures. According to Baladev Vidyabhushan, these texts describe persons who have given up following scripture out of laziness or because it is too troublesome, but still worship demigods. So this can be literally that someone's worshiping a demigod, meaning that someone worships the god of the rain, the god of the sun and the moon, just because it's easier. You don't have to give up anything. You don't have to, surrender yourself to any process. You just worship for some material benefit. Or we worship a demigod in the sense that we worship some material being. We become a Trump follower or a Harris follower, like our, we're just involved with the current powerful persons, and we are not thinking that they're God, but we're literally dealing with them or thinking of them like they're God, as though they're all powerful. Prabhupada said, whoever becomes the winning party, ultimately Krishna's in control. So too much focus on who's winning and who's not, too much focus on politics is putting our faith in something that is actually not powerful. Too much focus is making them the God of our life, because We think that this choice or this change will actually change the world. And then at the end, we find every political leader is just about the same. Everyone's looking out for themselves. Like people, they sacrifice their life, they risk their life or even give up their life sometimes for a political leader. And then that same leader later on becomes the worst leader once they're in power. So that's the material illusion. That's making a demigod into God. Text 2, if one does not follow the Vedas, he will follow his natural instinct, which will be either in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. When one does not base his faith in Shastric injunctions, his faith becomes based upon his mentality, which is the product of his particular conditioning by the modes. We choose our object of faith according to our nature, which comes from our previous lives, and our mind or heart, which will be addressed in text 3. Simply acting in faith according to our nature and mind will not bring us to perfection. While it is possible to choose to change our modes, such a change can only take place with knowledge gained from one who knows, a genuine guru. So people, have such a strong, attachment to being who they are. I am Indian, I am American, I am brown, I am white. But where does this come from? None of us chose our birth in this life. None of us chose who our mother will be or our father will be in this life. None of us chose, and none of us chose the land that we're going to born in or the color of skin that we're going to have. So this is all just based on the body. What does it matter? Why even be concerned about body or nationality or race or gender or all these things? Because this is simply our so-called convictions, faith, our attachments are simply a result of our past lives. Previously, we had certain desires, we have certain likings, dislikings. So Krishna in this life gave us a body and gave us a situation by which we can fulfill those. Like there's a man in Ireland who was fighting against the Scottish, I believe. And he could remember he was a soldier in the Irish army against the Scottish. That in his previous life, he was a Scottish soldier fighting against the Irish. He remembered his past lives. Many people do. He had a very traumatic death, so that's why that impression stayed with him. And now he's fighting on the other side. And he was still fighting on the other side. He could remember, he said that I remember being on the other side. I'm sure he had some very good secrets to tell the Irish. But this is exactly the point, that we one life we're fighting on one side of the battleground, the other life on the other side. One life we're a Republican, the other life we're a Democrat. And we're so convinced that this is the right way or the wrong way. But it's just our previous lives. So if we act based upon our mentalities, then our faith will not be placed in something very divine. But we can only change that when we gain knowledge from something that transcends the body, where the body is not a consideration, but it's the soul that's a consideration. So Prabhupada, in this purport, he writes, since a living entity is in contact with material nature, he acquires different types of mentality according to his association with the material modes. But this nature can be changed if one associates with a bona fide spiritual master and abides by his rules and the scriptures. Gradually, one can change his position from ignorance to goodness, or from passion to goodness. Now, very interesting, in chapter 14, text 10, Prabhupada writes, if one wants, he can develop by practice the mode of goodness, and thus defeat the modes of passion, modes of ignorance and passion. One can similarly develop the mode of passion and defeat goodness and ignorance. Or one can develop the mode of ignorance and defeat goodness and passion. Although there are these three modes of material nature, if one is determined, he can be blessed by the mode of goodness And by transcending the mode of goodness, he can be situated in pure goodness, which is called the Vasudeva state, a state in which one can understand the science of God. So here Prabhupada is emphasizing different things in different places, but he's emphasizing both things, that it's both by effort and by grace that we make progress in spiritual life. It can't be one or the other. So in chapter 14, he's focusing on effort, that if we really want, we can push ourselves, we can move ourselves to the mode of goodness. We must remind ourselves that I'm not these modes of nature. I'm transcendental to them. And in this one, he's saying you really can't do it without the help of a spiritual master, of a teacher, of the scriptures, of the mercy of the Lord. So effort and grace both have to go side by side. We need the guidance, we need the association, we also need the effort. Some people have the association, they make no effort. Others make an effort, but they don't have the association. One who has both can make spiritual progress. So now in text 3, Krishna says, this faith will be characterized by one of the three modes. Faith itself is of the mode of goodness, but the object of faith is of ignorance, passion, or goodness. Wood, smoke, and fire all contain fire, but only fire is useful for cooking. In ignorance, there may be some faith, but it is not useful. In passion, there is indication of spiritual life, just like smoke indicates fire. But again, it is not useful. Only when there's fire can one cook, etc. In a similar way, one who wants to make spiritual advancement must come to the mode of goodness in behavior. A sadhu is known by behavior. So here's an example. Osama bin Laden, but he had faith. He had great faith in the Quran, in his belief. But his faith was in the mode of ignorance, and therefore it was not useful. He had great faith, but his mindset was in ignorance, how to destroy people using that faith, and therefore it didn't help. Similarly, someone is faithful and they're very, very passionate, who could be a good example of this. So passionate that the passion drowns the faith. It's just all about becoming the head of the church and the head of the temple and being a great speaker and this, and the intention of that I'm doing this to please Krishna, to know Krishna, is lost. So many people like that. So only when it's in the mode of goodness will it actually make a change. And that goodness is known by the behavior of a sadhu, by his actions, by the practical, mood and activities of a sadhu. The word Shraddha or faith is very significant in this verse. Shraddha or faith originally comes out of the mode of goodness. One's faith may be in a demigod or some created god or some mental concoction. One's strong faith is supposed to be productive of works of material goodness. But in material conditioned life, no works are completely purified. They are mixed. They are not in pure goodness. Pure goodness is transcendental. In purified goodness, one can understand the real nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As long as one's faith is not completely in purified goodness, the faith is subject to contamination by any of the modes of nature. The contaminated modes of material nature expand to the heart. So of course, even if our faith is not in pure goodness, it's in passion and ignorance, the soul will make some advancement eventually. A person who's very passionate to become the head of the church will also make some spiritual progress because they're at least, trying to spread the message of God. They're trying to do good works. So that's good, but the contamination must be removed. Otherwise, it expands in the heart and becomes more and more overwhelming to the soul. The contaminated modes of material nature expand to the heart. Therefore, according to the position of the heart in contact with a particular mode of material nature, one's faith is established. It should be understood that if one's heart is in the mode of goodness, his faith is also in the mode of goodness. If his heart is in the mode of passion, his faith is also in the mode of passion. And if his heart is in the mode of darkness, illusion, his faith is also thus contaminated. Thus we find different types of faith in this world, and there are different types of religions due to different types of faith. The real principle of religious faith is situated in the mode of pure goodness. But because the heart is tainted, we find different types of religious principles. So Prabhupada says here, it's all the matter of the heart. And you'll notice this about people that, if their heart is in the wrong place, no matter what you do, how you talk to them, it's like they won't accept you or connect with you. And if their heart is in the right place, it'll be instantaneous. It's just, in spite of all difficulties, it'll work. Because it's all a matter of the heart. And the heart then manifests in terms of our actions, in terms of our choices, in terms of the development of our faith. So Krishna consciousness is all about improving the heart and, you could say, purifying the heart. And this process of sadhana bhakti that we do, this process of hearing and chanting about Krishna, of associating, about reading Krishna conscious literature, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, it's to purify the heart. And then everything else flows. To put our heart with Krishna, to put our heart in the mode of goodness. So now Krishna talks about worship in different modes. So he's answering Arjuna's question, different types of worship in the different modes. So it's actually very interesting. We don't know about, but if you look in this world, there's so many different types of worship. People actually worship ghosts and spirits. I had the opportunity to study world religions as a graduate student. And it's like amazing how many types of things people worship, So this is real. This is like Krishna kind of describing. So one who's transcended the modes, they worship a personal God out of bhakti. One who's in the mode of goodness actually worships the demigods. Even demigod worship is quite high because the demigods are devotees of Krishna, but it's not the highest thing. One who's in the mode of passion worships the demons, and one who's in the mode of ignorance worships the ghosts and spirits. In some places, such as Ishopanishad, the worship of the demigods is described as being in ignorance. Clearly, it is not only the object of worship, but also the mentality and motive. And there are demons in ignorance who worship demigods. So actually, that's also true that people worship the demigods to hurt another person. But you can't worship Krishna for that because Krishna won't give you what you want like that. Krishna will purify your heart before he gives you something. But demigods, they do. Many persons in modern society worship some political leader. I was just talking about that. Entertainer, and so forth. There are also persons who worship evil spirits and perform demonic rituals to get some powers and wealth. Sometimes they have sexual rituals as part of their worship. The tantrics, they do these rituals to control people, to gain power over other people. So we don't agree with those forms of worship, right? The Bhagavatam says, Dharma projita kaitava parama nirmat saranam satam. Bhagavatam begins with this. The second verse says that the Bhagavatam rejects all materially motivated religions. All these three are materially motivated. People are worshiping ghosts and spirits to get powers over, other people's bodies. The ghosts, they get, take advantage of other. They worship the demons to get power in the demoniac world. They worship the demigods. They do so in a more pious way because the demigods are the mode of goodness, but also it's for material elevation, for prosperity. you know, 3-car garage, flat screen TV, nice home in the suburb. Give me all this, God, and then I worship you. That's really demigod worship. And those who worship for the purpose of spiritual knowledge and love, they are worshiping bhakti. So, this is the it's how pure is our intention, how unalloyed. So Bhagavatam rejects the materially motivated religions, where the motivation is not spiritual emancipation, but the motivation is material prosperity, material power. Similarly, austerities, those who undergo severe austerities and penances, not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, who are foolish and who torture the material elements of the body, as well as a supersoul dwelling within, are to be known as demons. Very heavy. Sometimes we see austere people like this and we think, oh, they must be so great. But Krishna has a different viewpoint. Why are they torturing their body? And what is the intention of their austerity? Again, is it power and control over others? Or is it actually to serve others, to serve God and to serve other beings? Like, in India, you find the Naga Babas, and they stay naked all the time. And they sometimes sit on this bed of nails, like this Baba here is sitting on nails. And Prabhupada said, what is the point? They're just trying to show off. I'm so great, I can sit on a bed of nails and no one touches, and then people will worship them, people will come and give them donations, but they're torturing their body and the soul and the super soul inside. For what purpose? Does that solve life's problems? Does that solve poverty? Does that feed people who are hungry? Why are you doing this? Just for personal power. That's not good. By taking up austerities and practices not given in the scriptures, one harms the body and gives displeasure to the Lord, who dwells within. Devotees need to remember that their body is actually Krishna's property and should be cared for in a way that pleases the Lord. In fact, the devotee takes care of his body because he understands that this is a vehicle given to me by Krishna. I've rented this vehicle. Krishna's given it to me not to be misused, but to use it in his service. If I don't take care of it, that's a lack of service, because I'm misusing something that very valuable that's been given to me. The fate of demons, however austere they may appear, has actually been explained in chapters 9 and 16, which we won't go over again. Such demonstrations are insults to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are enacted in disobedience to the Vedic scriptural injunctions. So this image here, what it's showing is that this group of dacoits would bring humans to offer to this goddess Kali. She has many arms, being shown here. And one time they brought a great devotee to offer as a human sacrifice to the goddess. And the goddess doesn't accept human sacrifice because it's not done according to the scripture. They thought, well, this will be an even better offering. Rather than offering an animal, we'll offer a human being. And so she rather destroys them, kills them, before they can kill the devotee of the Lord. Because such offerings, such practices are not pleasing to God, but are in fact demoniac. Just like there's so many traditions that, the final offering is to offer the head of a goat. And therefore, millions of people who are part of that tradition will offer a goat, and millions of goats will die. They have to cut off the head of a goat and, with an axe, and it's like there's a river of blood. And this is, faith in the mode of ignorance, that the very religious practice is based upon hinsa or violence. How can that be good? And this was one of the reasons for Lord Buddha's appearance, to tell people that the basis of religion is ahimsa or non-violence. At that time, people were doing animal sacrifices, even sometimes human sacrifices in the name of religion. And every tradition, there's a tradition in Nepal that does it. The Muslim tradition that does it. When they go on their Hajj, it has to end with the butchering of a goat. And there's millions and millions of people who go on that pilgrimage. Every Muslim must do that. And there's the Vedic sacrifices where they were offering sacrifices in the fire of animals. And Buddha came to stop all of this. That no, this is not religion. And real spiritual practice is based on ahimsa, or love for all living beings. So we may be perfectly pious, we may be perfectly religious, but if the heart is not in the right place, if it's not based upon compassion, it will not be transcendental. Now, Krishna in text 7 to 22 describes the symptoms of conditioned faith, which means that he goes through now different things that we do, austerity, charity, and describes it in the modes of nature. After discussing different kinds of faith in relation to the modes, Krishna goes on to discuss food, sacrifice, austerity, and charity in relation to them. By considering these aspects of a person's life, one can further understand the modes of their faith also. We should remember, so that faith manifests in certain aspects in life. We should remember, however, that each conditioned soul is influenced by a subtle and interwoven combination of modes. One who can understand which modes eating, yajna, sacrifice, austerity, and charities are in are wise. Those who cannot discriminate are foolish, Krishna says. So now the foods. Krishna says, foods in the mode of goodness, he defines. So why do we eat certain types of food? Because Krishna defines it in the Gita very clearly. He tells us you can eat any food and whatever food you like, but if you eat this food, you'll be in the mode of goodness. If you eat this food, you'll be in the mode of passion. So he says the choice is yours. Which mode do you want to be in? Foods in goodness increase the duration of one's life. They purify one's existence. They give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. They're juicy, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. So there's no doctor who you go to and he says, really increase your intake of red meat. Is there any doctor you go to and say, you really need to increase your red meat? No, they all say regulate it, limit it. Every religious tradition, every social tradition tries to limit the eating of meat. But they all say, increase your veggies and fruits. So it must be that those types of foods are in the mode of goodness because they increase our duration of life. There's no doctor that says, you should really eat a lot of oil and chilies in your food. Just increase the oil in your food and your thyroid problem will be solved. Increase the oil, the sugar, the chilies, and your diabetes will be solved. No. Everyone says, regulate that because those are foods in the mode of passion. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, bought with money that was earned purely, cooked purely, and served in a pure place by pure people. That is sattva, refers to virtue which brings steadiness of mind, enabling one to remain undisturbed in the face of sorrow. It's so beautiful what he's writing. Sattva refers to virtue which brings steadiness of mind, enabling one to remain undisturbed in the face of sorrow. Agreeable means to the stomach and the eye. And snigha means having some oil while not excessively fatty. So he gives even the meanings of the word. Some, and then some people, they go on the extreme where it's a raw food diet and it's everything's raw and nothing is cooked, nothing is, of course, for some people that's very pleasing, but for most people, especially like children, they need some cooked food also. So some oil, some ghee can be used and it should be cooked. It can be cooked, but it's not excessively fatty. He mentions this actually. So, cream cheese with double cream and double, butter and double, all those things are also considered not to be in the mode of goodness. Foods in rajas are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry. They cause distress, misery, and disease. These are the mode of passion. When taken in excess, as to be healthy, one must eat all 6 Ayurvedic tastes. So when we take only chili food, then the body will be lacking something else. So to be healthy, one actually has to have a variety of food, and that creates health. Sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, spicy, and astringent. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that distress is felt while eating in the mode of passion. Distress is felt while eating because it's burning your mouth as it goes in. Misery after eating, so when it comes out, it burns. And disease in the long-term effect. And then long-term, you get some disease. Just like when I was a student, I went to one devotee family's home. They were from somewhere in South India, and they were used to eating a lot of chilies, like the super, high chilies, and all around India, that's the case. They just happened to be from there, and and so I would go to their home, and the sabji was more like a pickle, like like even more. You would like put a little bit of it, and it would like burn in your mouth. It was like solid cayenne. So anyway, but as a student, it's like anyone invites you for food, you go for prasadam. Anyone invites you for prasadam, and they're very nice devotees. So I would go, and then the next year, I went for home for summer break. The next year I came back, and same home, and the man was eating just like boiled vegetables, just completely boiled food. And I asked him, Prabhu, what happened? I was looking forward to a super hot prasadam, and now it's all boiled. And for me, still, it was spicy, but he was taking boiled. And the rest of his family was also taking spicy. But he said, oh, I went to the doctor, and the doctor said that the entire lining of my stomach inside is burnt. The entire lining of my inside stomach is burnt. So I have to eat boiled for at least, 6 months before I can eat anything spicy. So this is what is being said here. Disease and the long-term effect. So therefore, we eat Krishna prasadam. And Krishna prasadam means food in the mode of goodness. Because Krishna is in the mode of goodness, Krishna accepts food that's in the mode of goodness. And mode of goodness means that you'll be cooking it in the right consciousness. See, it's not just the nature of the food, but it's the person cooking. Even the source of the money that buys the food affects the food. The atmosphere, the mentality of the cook affects the food. The place where it's cooked, it affects the food. And I've noticed that we go for these home programs, and after that, if I eat there very regularly, what everyone notices, and you'll also notice, I've noticed that it actually affects one's consciousness. One becomes more angry, lusty, greedy, as a result of eating very opulent food cooked in passion by different people. You don't know, like some people are in goodness, but others are very much in passion. And therefore, even if it's prasadam, we have to see who is cooking it. Even if it's being offered to Krishna, who is cooking it, and what mentality has been cooked. Because in the mode of goodness, one will naturally cook simple and wholesome varieties of food. Big topic in our movement, right? And then food in tamas. This is food that actually harms other living beings. So, there's one thing to eat spicy food or too oily, this, that, but food that actually is based upon the death of others. Foods prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten. So this is especially in a time of no refrigerators, right? So this food is spoiled. Tasteless, decomposed, and putrid. Remnants and untouchable things. This is food in the mode of ignorance. So I overheard one man one time say, I need my meat because, someone has to die for my food. I was thinking this is his consciousness, that someone has to die for my food. And that's why meat and the meat industry is not just about the taste. In fact, you can very easily replace the taste of meat with these, superfoods that are coming out. They taste just like meat, and they're made out of soya or this or that. And yeah, that's what the context was in. Someone was at the campus. They're saying, "Oh, you can have this soya food, and just like it's so good, and it's also healthy. It doesn't cause cancer." Like, two students talking, or two people. Just they weren't students. I think they were just people talking. And then the other says, "No, but someone has to die for my food." Right? It wasn't good enough to have the same taste. It was about the blood. It was about, how a chicken or a cow or a lamb has to give up their life so that I can eat. They have to, undergo all the pain. And that's food in the mode of ignorance. The ill effects of food in passion affects us in this life, but food in ignorance affects us in both this life and the next, right? So if you eat pungent, very chilly food, then you'll get a bad stomach, and it's like you'll go to the doctor and gradually you'll recover. But mode of ignorance food, even to the next life, we have to come back as a chicken. Just like just writing yesterday, that how my Guru Maharaj, my spiritual master, Gopal Krishna Maharaj, when he would go on a morning walk, he would sometimes walk next to the river and people would be fishing. And he would very fearlessly and, without any hesitation, he would call out to them and request them, please don't fish. It's not good for you. Why? And it's not good for the fish, obviously, but it's not good for you either. Why? Because today you are fishing, tomorrow you will be fished. Right? Because every action has a reaction. And in our next life, we have to come back as a fish or a chicken or a cow. And the effects of that will affect us unless we make a change, unless we stop that activity. And food above the modes is food that is spiritual, not just in the mode of goodness, but it's offered to Krishna with love. It's food that's wholesome, healthy, juicy, fresh, uh, you know, not non-violent food. But all food, to some degree, is a little violent because, when you pull out a carrot from the ground, you're killing the plant. So even then, it's not completely karma-free unless we offer it to Krishna. If we offer it to Krishna, then Krishna takes the karma and he just gives us the prasad, the mercy in return. And that's in every tradition, just like the Christians, they say the grace. They must thank the Lord for their food. The devotee must offer it to Krishna. And that's what we're interested in. Prabhupada's mission. Fatty foods, as mentioned in the 8th verse, have no connection with animal fat obtained by slaughter. So Prabhupada also says that fatty foods, or Krishna is saying fatty foods is the mode of goodness that give strength to the body. But that fatty food is different from food that is too fatty or food that is connected from animal fat. Animal fat is available in the form of milk, naturally, which is the most wonderful of all foods. Milk, butter, cheese, and similar products give animal fat in a form which rules out any need for the killing of innocent creatures. It is only through brute mentality that this killing goes on. The civilized method of obtaining needed fat is by milk. Slaughter is the way of subhumans. So these days there is a movement of veganism where it says that, look, don't even take the milk from the animals because that causes discomfort to the cow and especially the calf. The milk is meant for the calf, but the human being is taking it. But this is not completely true. It can be true in a certain context where the animals are being mistreated. But where the animals are treated correctly, it is a scientific fact that the cow gives more milk naturally, voluntarily. It gives more milk than what the calf can drink. In fact, if the calf drinks all the milk, the calf gets sick. So the cow is intentionally giving some milk for the human being who's taking care of her out of love. My grandfather had a cow for his whole life, and this was so obvious. The cow would wait, just like pets do, like dogs. They would wait for him to come home, and there would be milk dripping from her udder. She knew that this person is taking care of me, and I, in reciprocation, are giving him my milk. It was never a relationship of any type of advantage. If you go to the Gita Nagri farm, you can get ahimsa milk. They actually will mail it to your door. It's quite expensive, but you can get it. And you go there and you'll find those cows are happier than most human beings. They're the happiest cows in the world. No one can say that they're being taken advantage of or abused by taking their milk, making cheese from it or yogurt. They are, they would be unhappy if they were not taken care of, if that exchange between human and animal would not have been there. Because cows by nature, they like to live in domesticated areas. They don't like to live in the wild. They're very happy in their place. They don't need a big place either. Some animals are not, like, a deer just wants to run and run in the forest, but cows are not like that. There's a connection, just like dogs are often happier in the home than they are if you just leave them in the wild. So no one can say, well, you have a dog, so you must be abusing the animal because you're not letting it just roam freely in the streets. Can anyone make that point? So why in cows? Cows are also, even more so, they are naturally connected with humans. So veganism is nice when the cows are abused, right? When those same cows are being taken for slaughter, when those cows are being injected with antibiotics, when those cows are being, their calves are being taken away from them for life and killed, then it's good to be vegan because we don't want to connect ourselves with animal slaughter. But veganism by itself is not the right thing. If cows are treated nicely, then we're naturally accustomed in nature to have animal-human cooperation. And it is natural for a person, Prabhupada here is saying, to have milk, butter, and cheese because every child needs it growing up. It's a fact. Ice cream, cheese, butter, this is what children have and what makes them strong. And they make the finer tissues of our brain very sharp. So Prabhupada saw the need of offering cow's milk so much to Krishna and to our children, and as a way of getting people off of meat, that he even allowed us to take milk from the store, from companies that slaughtered the animal, because he had a long-term strategy. If people appreciate milk, cheese, and yogurt, then they'll give up meat, and they'll give up the part that is not good. But if we deny them from milk, butter, and cheese, and from meat, then very few people will become vegan. You see, because then there's only very few people who are so austere that they can just live off of tofu and carrots, right? So he thought, no, let them take what is good. And then if they find satisfaction in ghee, which Prabhupada said is a replacement for meat, it's clarified butter, the taste of it gives up the need for meat, then gradually the whole society will give up meat. So it was a strategy, but he wanted us to get milk from protected cows. That's the best. Okay, so this is a perfect place to stop. This is a long chapter, so we'll do it in two parts. We did the first part today, and so now we can have about 10-15 minutes of discussion. So thank you very much for your attention. So very nice chapter. Any thoughts, reflections? Somewhat straightforward, this chapter.
Can he talk? Hare Krishna.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
So I just, when you were talking about Guru Maharaj walking on and then the fish example, I was just reading your drop of nectar today morning. And then your experience about it, that, okay, how you followed the instruction of Guru Maharaj and what happened. Can you elaborate a little bit to all people? That was so good.
Well, yes, yes. Thank you for reminding on that. Uh, that's some people. What that shows is that some people become angry if you tell them what to eat and what not to eat. That's natural. So one has to do it very tactfully. So I gave the example that how Maharaj would go and tell people very tactfully that they shouldn't fish because it's not good for them. And so one time he asked me to do that. That man is standing there, tell him not to fish. And when someone's fishing, you go up to him. So I thought, okay, I'll go and I'll do the same thing. And I went and I blurted out the same lines, somewhat untactfully. And this man became very angry with me. He took his fishing rod and like started shaking it like he was going to beat me. So food choices are something that's very personal. And that's why actually I generally talk about it in public, like sort of in a class rather than individually to people, because they can become very disturbed. People are very attached to their food. And so it's our kind of duty to give the message, and Krishna talks about this actually later in this chapter itself, but in a way that they can appreciate it and accept it. So that every time, place, and circumstance must be understood, and also our spiritual potency, right? How spiritually elevated are we that we can affect another's heart, so that they can accept the knowledge and not reject it or become averse to it. So we have this very important principle that this truth should be spoken, but it should be spoken in a way that positively affects the other person as far as possible, right? Sometimes it's not possible. You just have to say the truth. People like it or they don't. But it's a very challenging thing to even though it's logical, but it's challenging to make people understand certain food choices. Like before, it used to be that if you were a vegetarian in America, people thought if you were a vegetarian, you were either also gay and lesbian, and you were also probably, um, maybe a hippie who takes LSD. Like being vegetarian was connected with being an extremist. You were like really extreme if you're vegetarian. But now, in being vegetarian is now being vegetarian is like the norm. So the mindset of society has actually been changed by Prabhupada's books. So many millions of people are receiving these books, they're reading them, and you see that what used to be really, unknown, kind of weird, is now becoming mainstream. That, oh, let's think about a vegetarian diet. And Prabhupada's strategy is working. Even Prabhupada was tactful, right? He didn't want us to take milk from cows that are killed, but he allowed it because he wanted to change the whole society. And drinking milk, as he's mentioning here, is good. So if he stops the good, then people will not stop what is bad, that is eating the meat. Also, milk must be offered to Krishna, and Krishna, Krishna will purify the situation if we offer it to Krishna, and he's known as the butter thief. So Prabhupada's strategy has worked. Yes. Bhadra Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Class. Oh, my question is, I believe from the previous one of the classes, talked about samskaras. And there are several samskaras starting from the Garbhadan samskar. So we came to Krishna consciousness at a very later part of our life. And we did not perform all the samskaras, either because we did not have any knowledge, or nobody told us about those. So how should we understand that what happens if we don't perform those samskaras?
Yes. So that's why in Kali Yuga, everything is messed up, right? That's why Kalo Shudra Sambhava. In Kali Yuga, everyone is born as a Shudra. And that's why the scriptures say, Kalo doshe nidhe rajan eko asti mahadgunad kirtanadeva krishnasya. That due to all of these faults, all the faults in this age, everything is so disturbed in this age. But by the holy name, by the chanting of Krishna's holy names, eko asti mahadgunad, that positive resource that we have is so great that it can overrun, overrule, and neutralize all the negative effects of this age. And we must have faith in, we must know this for a fact, that just by the holy name of Krishna, we can get the same results, even better than the results of the samskaras that we miss out on. And Prabhupada says this in one place, that by the chanting of the holy name, that which was possible before by the Brahmanas of previous times can be attained in this day and age. And so doing them is very good, but if they're not done, we can make up for them by the holy name. Just like Garbhodhan Sanskar used to be there before, but now today, Prabhupada said the Garbhodhan Sanskar is that the husband and wife, they chant 64 rounds before conceiving a child. And then that chanting will attract the mentality of a great soul into their home. And that will be better than even Garbhodhan Sanskar. So that's basically kind of my understanding.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Lavanya Mataji?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
The topic about the food, actually, every day I go to work. So, there are people, in my class itself, there are people, who take, all sorts of food. So it's like, how come, we maintain ourselves? I can, we have the control that you eat only sattvic food or so. But the thing is, the people surrounding us, they have very, rude comments to pass on, when you eat. They say that, that I'm depriving myself of all the healthy benefits of all the food. So I really would not like to, previously I would have argued. But now I try to, I am just keeping quiet, Prabhu. The thing I keep to myself, I'm just listening to whatever they say, that's it. But thing is, inside I feel that, I have to respond very strongly, but the thing is I cannot. They say that, you say that you're not hurting, you don't want to hurt anyone or any animal, so that's why you are not eating. But the thing is, why are you hurting the cow? So the same thing, that we are depriving the calf, from its rights. Like, we are not giving its rights to have the milk of its mothers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's why, whenever we do something good, there's always people to criticize. So, and that's the same story we were referring to, that yes, I was openly telling someone, don't fish, but they were getting angry with me. So I realized that, well, I have to do it with tact. So in the same way, your tactful approach is very good. Sometimes at job you cannot say anything, but other times, like something, if that's your area, you can tell them that, no, I'm from India. I know that the calf and the cow are very much in tune with a human being, taking care of them, and they give more milk than what the calf can drink. And you can try raising a cow and see for yourself, right?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, the thing is, thanks to this, because of last 1 year, we have been attending the Bhakti Vriksha and other stuff, I know that, when I have to keep quiet, I wasn't like this 1.5 years ago. If somebody would criticize me, I would actually respond strongly. But thing is, now I feel that, yeah, it is good that, I have my peace, but still, I'm content that I'm not responding. Inside, I feel I should respond, but still, it gives me peace. It's okay. Let them say, I am what I am. That's it.
Yes. That's Krishna consciousness. That's your Krishna consciousness. And you can see that it's affecting you, right? That's the mode of goodness.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Yaman, Prabhu, Yaman Sharma.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, Prabhu, one quick question. So, I also have to go out and eat outside, take the clients out and everything, the nature of the job. But then naturally, like what people are eating, what they are eating, and that's fine. I mean, it's not my place to judge. But I strictly follow, and even if I go to the restaurants now, I can request that I have an onion and garlic allergy. So most of the restaurants are actually accommodating.
Yes.
So when they do, but what do we do? Like that's not been offered. So is there anything specific you suggest? I just say Hare Krishna and Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, and I just eat.
Yes. Actually, what you're saying is so true that nowadays, it wasn't like this before in America, but these days, if someone just orders a salad, then people think, oh, it's something really cool. Like they'll be like, oh, I should have also just gotten a salad. Look at how healthy he is. Because people, this is a result of food in the mode of ignorance. Like people's health these days is not good. They eat so much junk food and meat and all these things. They are concerned about their health. And when they see someone eating healthy, they're like, wow, this is actually really nice. So they'll pass good comments when I just take a salad. And yes, that's the principle, that when we are in a place where we don't have an altar or all these things, then in our mind, we offer it to Krishna. We can even say the pranam mantras, Nama Om Vishnupadaya, the whole mantras in our mind and offer it to Krishna. Like just for a minute, close our eyes and say those mantras that we say for offering food. And maybe you don't know those mantras, but someone can share those with you.
What is the beginning of the mantra again, Prabhu? I'll look it into it.
Yes, it's Nama Om Vishnupadaya. Krishna. I'll send them to you because there's 3 or 4 of them, and these are the mantras that we use for offering our food to Krishna.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, no, this is very good for others also. There may be some others here also who are not aware of that. And so we can say that in our mind. And if it's really quick, like you're just, someone gives you something and you're just putting it in your mouth, then like you're saying, you just say Hare Krishna. You don't have time to make an offering, even a few minutes, you just say Hare Krishna. Yes.
Okay. No, if it helps anybody else like this, yes, I'm gladly surprised. All the restaurants, especially the American restaurants, they're very cautious. If you tell them I have onion and garlic allergy, like they are, you know what I mean? Like they would make sure that there is no cross-contamination. The chef will sometimes come out to talk to you. Okay, but it's been prepared in a separate dish. It was washed. Not even the utensils were used. They make sure that it's done right.
Yes.
So I think it's been very easy so far with Krishna's grace.
Yes, thank you for that. And especially in work at engagements that one has to eat out, it's very handy.
Yes.
And of course, for just leisure, even though they're very cautious, and you're not saying this, but I'm just saying in general, we still don't eat out because they can wash everything, but they can't wash the consciousness, right? Or the utensil or the atmosphere itself that may be used also for cooking meat and things like that. So we still avoid, but exactly like you're saying, as part of our work, profession, and even sometimes obligation to family members and neighbors, we have to eat out. Like they're saying, your family members saying, you must come and eat at my home. So how do we handle that? And this is a nice way to handle it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Lakshmi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have a question about, is where you said, we choose our object of faith according to our nature, So, like, how do you explain a person who's trying to find a way and they haven't, actually find their path, and they follow, Christianity, they convert to Christianity, then they follow another faith, and they're constantly jumping and they haven't found their true, where do they wind up?
Well, a very nice question. It depends on their motivation. See, so if they're actually seeking and they're very sincere to find the truth, then they could be in the mode of goodness, because they're jumping, but they're jumping because they're looking, and they're waiting until Krishna manifests himself in their life in some form or the other. On the other hand, sometimes in another aspect, sometimes people jump because they're not sincere. They jump from one place to another. Like one person had joined our Bhakti Vriksha, and the first week when he joined, he told us, I do this. I joined a spiritual organization for 1 or 2 years, and then I change. And he told me right in the beginning, and then I thought, well, no, now he's come to Krishna consciousness, he won't change. But exactly after like a year and a half, he just disappeared. Like no reason for it, he just disappeared. And his wife even said, yeah, no, he does this. I know. He's going now to some other religion. So this is sometimes it's not sincerity when people say, okay, now it means I have to commit to something and work towards reaching the Lord. Then they stop it and they move to something else. Well, there must be something better out there, because they really don't want to sincerely work towards the ultimate goal, which takes hard work. They want the easy way out. Even in ISKCON, we see this, that people sometimes go to some other Baba or this or that or Radhakund because it's the easy way out. It's now too difficult to work with the organization or with the people that I've been working with. So let me hop to a different place. So it depends on the motivation. And I think what you're speaking about is someone who's not really found Krishna and is, searching. So their motivation is probably very good. But it all depends on the motivation, and that leads us to a particular mode in nature. Yes.
Also, Prabhu, sometimes
yes.
people will say, okay, I'm coming here, let me see what your Krishna can do.
Yes. Yes, like the mood is challenging, it's kind of skeptical, not sincere. Yes. Yeah. Let's see what you can do. And then after 2 months, if he doesn't make me into a millionaire, then I'm into another place, Yes. Wonderful. Haripriya, we're going to end with you. Please give us the final. Actually, I think Rashmi Mataji, you had a point or question.
Yeah, I was just going to add a few points, but it's okay if we are running out of time.
Okay, so we'll do it next time. Please remember to them. We'll do it next time, because yes, thank you. Haripriya, please give us the Haripriya.
Yes, so I have some points, so we can see that the connection between the 16th and 17th chapters. So we can see the divine nature. So it faithfully follows the Shastras, one in divine nature, and then one in demonic nature has no faith in Shastras. So and my next point is that we can see that there are 3 types of faith corresponding to and involving from the 3 modes of nature. Acts performed by those whose faith is in passion and ignorance yield in permanent material results, whereas acts performed in goodness in accord with spiritual injunctions purify the heart and lead to pure faith in Lord Krishna and devotion to him. So we can see that wood, smoke, and fire all contain fire, but only fire is used for cooking. In a similar way, one who wants to make spiritual advancement must come to the mode of goodness in behavior. A sadhu, and one last was that a sadhu is known by behavior. And then my last point is that we can see that that for the worship that bhakti, bhakti in one who is in bhakti has worship their personal god, and then one who is in the mode of goodness or sattva gun worship the demigods, and then one who is in rajas gun they worship the demons, and one who is in tamas worship the ghosts and spirits. Thank you.
Thank you. So nice. Yes, you always do the wonderful summary, and not just summary, but your realizations. You put it in what things that stood out to you, and it's a wonderful conclusion. So thank you very much, everyone. Those of you who are taking this as a course, for those of you, I will post the homework, chapter 17 and 18, on the WhatsApp group. So feel free to do that. Please make sure to do that if you're taking the course. If you're not, then you can do it if you like. And then next week, we will continue with chapter 17 and we'll finish chapter 17 next week. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Bhaiya.
Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare.